right, so here we have number 105 from chapter 2.2. Here they give you 5 different options for equations that could represent the graph here on the right. And you are asked to eliminate those to pick those that could represent the graph. Now, going through this problem, there's a couple things that I would look at, and this is actually a good example of some strategies you can use on multiple choice questions. So the first one here is that I'm going to look for differences between the equations that I have here. One of the first ones that jumps out at me is that some of them have a negative leading coefficient and some of them don't. Okay, so that's probably something I'm going to look for to try to eliminate one or the other. And then I also noticed that on the interior of the quantities squared here, that some of them are +1 and some of them are -1. Now, I'm remembering from the last chapter that we learned about transformations saying that if there's a number being added or subtracted inside the parentheses here, that it's going to shift our equation in the opposite direction. So for example, this one would shift it 1 to the left, 1 to the right, so on and so forth. Well, if I look over here at my graph, you can kind of see that the midpoint, and again, it's not really called the midpoint, seems to be shifted slightly to the right. So I actually can look at this and see, well, and it's obviously not shifted to the left. So I can go ahead and I can eliminate A, okay, because it was a positive one, so it would shift my graph to the left, and I can eliminate D. So there's 2 that I can get rid of right off the bat. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my attention to that negative that was out in front. So I see I have 2 with a positive and 1 with a negative. Well, I'm going to take a look and I'm going to think about, well, what is that negative in the end going to do? Well, no matter what x is out or in here, okay, on the inside, okay, at least with, or for example, with this one here, and actually let's take a look at the one that is different and let's see how this one would behave. So as x gets, for example, really small, so we're going to say when x is a negative number, well, this on the inside is going to be a negative, but no matter what, it'll turn out to be positive because we're squaring it. Okay? But then if we have, or so as x approaches negative infinity, well then over here, well, we're going to have a negative x. Okay, so we're going to have this, this would be positive. Then we have a negative x, but then we have a negative in front. Well, a negative and negative gives us a positive. So with this one, as x gets very negative, we should be getting an output as x gets very negative, we should be getting an output that is in fact positive. A positive times a positive would give us a positive. Well, if we look to our graph here, as x goes to the left and becomes more negative, our y value in fact decreases. So I also know that this one can't be it. Now, if I look at these 2 equations, I see that they both shift to the right. With both of them, I'm going to end up, as I, for example, approach x goes to negative infinity. Okay? Well, with both of them, here I would end up with a negative, okay, times a negative. Or I'm sorry, a positive times a negative. My mistake. Okay, this, no matter what, we would square it and become positive. Well, as if this was negative, okay, a negative times a negative, I'd end up with a positive here, and I'd end up with a negative here. So no matter what, as I approach negative infinity with both of these, I will be heading in the negative direction, down. Well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing according to my graph. As x goes towards negative infinity, y decreases and heads towards negative infinity. So in fact, both of these look like they're viable options. If you were to graph both of these in the equation or in your graphing calculator, you'll find that it looks very much like this. Now, the difference with having the x squared out here, it certainly could make a difference, but since they don't give you any additional information, both of these would in fact be viable answers, even though in the book it only tells you that B is.